The Green America Hometown Tour is brought to you by Atrion IT Technology, Rhode Island College, Cardi's Furniture, and the Arpin Group.
Well, my first thought as I've listened to these great presentations, as we're going to talk about a few things that we're doing, is I don't think we're doing enough. Obviously, we've got a lot of issues ahead of us. But I do want to tell you a few things about what the Division of Planning is doing before I ask my other good friends and colleagues here to tell us what they're doing. First of all, I think most of you know we were able to successfully amend the state's comprehensive planning legislation last year. I won't go into all the details of that, but importantly, for communities who are embarking on updating their comprehensive plans, it will include two new elements, energy and climate change, obviously both very important for sustainability. And I'm going to spend the rest of my time really talking about funding and the regional planning grant that we have from HUD. And in terms of funding, we're very careful with the money that flows through our office. And it comes to us from transportation planning funds and also through various types of housing funds, community development block grants, estate housing bond, et cetera. In terms of housing, we have spent millions of dollars in this state in the last 6 or 8 years on affordable housing projects. They've been built all around the state in most of the communities in the state. They've helped our stricken construction industry limp along. More than half of the construction jobs that we have been able to keep in the state have been due to our affordable housing efforts. And they've been invested strategically. We look at the state's land use plan. We look at the local comprehensive plans before we decide to invest in those projects. So those plans don't sit on the shelves. They actively engage how we spend our money. We also use challenge grant money, which is basically transportation planning funds. And we've done 3 rounds of grants. The newest one this year, we're giving out 15 grants to places like Newport, which is looking at reconfiguring land use at the base of the Pell Bridge. DEM is going to take some of the lessons learned in the Exeter Village planning process and try to seed that around the state. A town like Tiverton is looking at village development and form-based codes. I won't go into all of them, but we have spent $3 million over the last 6 years, projects all around the state, transformative projects, and I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to get done. And we've also been able to fund GrowSmart and GrowSmart Training Initiative, without which we would not be able to do a lot of the work that we do. Proud to say we've had a role in 5 of the 9 award winners that you're going to see at lunchtime today. And we will be funding a 6th, the City of Warwick. We're giving them money to work on their station redevelopment design guidelines. So 6 out of 9 isn't bad. Lastly, we were successful in receiving a grant from HUD, $2.3 million, a regional planning grant. This is really a game changer for us. These were very competitive around the country. We have a consortium of 19 members. The 3 folks here are members of that consortium. We already have, as you know, a vital and vibrant transportation plan and land use plan. 2 of the major products of this are going to bring our economic development plan and housing plan under that umbrella. And when I say under that umbrella, I'm not just talking about the normal policy plans that we in the state have typically done. We are going to bring a geographic focus to that planning effort, which we've done with our land use plan and we do with our transportation planning. We will be doing that with economic development and housing, which will be a new level. We'll be working with cities and towns to identify growth centers around the state. We'll be doing a lot of capacity building at the local level, doing real performance measures. And throughout all of this, we're going to have a focus on equity. Underserved populations in the state typically have not been involved in these sorts of planning efforts, and we're going to do everything we humanly can to bring those underserved populations into the planning effort. So with that, I am going to, let's see, who wants to go first? I'm going to pick you, Janet. So Janet, as you know, is a director of DEM, the Rose Between Thorns. And
all the time.
So Janet, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and first thank you to Grow Smart Rhode Island because I absolutely love this event, and it is so inspiring. If you don't feel inspired and motivated by this event, consider whether you might be an alien. So I want to highlight a few things, and also to say that the folks in this room and the folks I work with at DEM are already working on these. I loved the presentations. We're already doing a lot of work on these initiatives, so I wanted to just highlight a few. First of all, from Governor Chafee in the 60s talking about green acres to Governor Chafee now talking about smart growth, we have a state that has really stepped up on protecting green spaces, protecting our river corridors, creating parks, creating bike paths. And so that's a lot of what DEM works on, and the headway that we've made with folks in this room, land trusts, conservation groups, Providence Foundation, Pawtucket Foundation, is amazing. And those are the corridors, the walkable communities, the Blackstone bike path and greenway that are part of this vision. And we need to keep investing in those. So I have to promote the $25 million bond that the governor's put forward. It's before the General Assembly. It's for open space. It's to protect farmland. It's for recreation. We need to keep investing in those. They pay off. And every state dollar leverages many, many more dollars. So that and the $20 million bond for clean water and safe drinking water. Tell your legislators to support those. Secondly, I wanted to mention brownfields redevelopment and reuse. DEM in Rhode Island has been at the forefront of successful efforts. We've worked on over 500 sites. We've fully remediated 160 sites. We have thousands of properties in our communities that we can reuse and revitalize. And that's for parkland, and that's for housing and other types of developments. And two more quickly. One is the things that we're not reusing and the things that we're not protecting are just smart development opportunities. And we have leadership with our municipalities who are working on conservation development, where you can plan and design a project so that you have open space and stormwater protection and attractive mixed-use development. And we've recently, with CRMC, initiated a whole new stormwater manual to promote low-impact development. And a lot of the building community is excited about it. We have projects from the village on the waterfront in East Providence to Post Road and the Quonset sites and redevelopment in North Kingstown, where we're looking at taking the site and designing it so that it meets the natural features. We recharge the groundwater at the site, green roofs. There's a whole bunch of things going on that we're really making headway on. And then lastly, I just want to mention, as part of the part of sustainability thinking and what we're talking about today, one bright spot is our local agriculture. One of the speakers mentioned that people are moving to beautiful places and figuring out what to do. Some of the most creative and innovative young people I've met are going into farming. And we have high yield per acre. We have 50 farmers markets, where just a few years ago we had 8. We have people looking for year-round markets in downtown Providence. We have seafood and produce markets in Newport. And we have restaurants and Rhode Island experiences that benefit by having fresh local food. And that's a real part of what makes quality of place here. And it's a place where we're having an economic growth. There's thousands of jobs in this sector. People sometimes don't think of that. And where we have an opportunity to do more. So those are just a smattering of things we're working on at DEM. And it certainly all comes down to having air, soils, water that are clean and healthy, and make this a place that people want to live and work. And that's what we're about.
Great stuff, Janet. Thank you very much. Director Lewis, how about anything new in your world?
Actually,
train stations, maybe?
I just want to follow up on Janet's comments about being inspired. And in fact, I am an alien. And
he really is. But
and even I was
Canadian.
I was inspired by that. From what Scott, I had a sort of, we all have these slump days, and yesterday was a bit of a slump day. You know how things just sort of line up and just aren't going your way. And I came down, got up, came to work this morning. Beautiful walk down from the State House down here. Passed a couple people riding to work, which was great. Came in, saw Art Handy with his bike helmet on. Sat down, heard Scott, heard Jeff, and heard Chris, and just thought, yes, I'm recharged. That's what it's all about. and we are doing good things, and there's great progress that's being made here and great opportunities. And it's this kind of forum that we need to come to every year to recharge the batteries. And so to all of you, thank you, because I think it's helping me already. I feel better than I did when I got up this morning. And I'm sure something will come up today that'll bring me right back down again. But no, it's a great forum. There's a positive message with transportation, and then I'm going to have to mention sort of the negative issue with transportation. But on the positive side, over the last couple decades, Rhode Island, the leadership here, both civic and public leadership, going back, many people, from current Governor Chafee to the time when he was Mayor of Warwick, to the time he was Senator, from Senator Reid, Senator Whitehouse, people have been recognizing that you need to take action to transform an environment. And Chris mentioned that, I think, in his reference of when he was here, however many number of years ago, and how Providence is being transformed. It's being transformed by good planning, good investment in infrastructure, and good collaboration amongst many players. The most recent success that I think we've had here, and I'll touch on two things. One is the highway project. Now there's that big urban highway project. We didn't add really capacity, but we changed what was done, and probably a mistake that was made 40, 50 years ago, 50 or 60 years ago, by removing the scar that was created through the downtown. And I have a little experience with another fairly significant scar up in Boston. But what was done here, and by moving 195 out of the downtown, out of the Jewelry District, by creating this opportunity, it's a rare opportunity to revitalize the downtown core. And that's something that is incredibly exciting, and what's happening today with Colin Kane and the Commission to really bring back the knowledge, or bring back the Jewelry District, create this knowledge economy. It was great to see, I think it was Chattanooga, that had the pedestrian bridge, and what a success that was. Well, we're doing exactly the same thing here, because people thought about, that's taking an old highway bridge, turning it into a pedestrian bridge, connecting the east side with the west side and to the knowledge district. So those things are happening now. We're going to see those developments. So when you're back in 5 years, you're going to have a really new environment downtown. The other major investment that's been made, and has been many years in the planning, was recognizing that New England, the Northeast, and a lot of the country, not all of it, but a lot of the country, the days of building highways are over, and that's coming from a highway guy. We have,
That's because you're a highway guy.
That was my plug line. The private automobile isn't going anywhere. It's going to be different, but it's not going anywhere in this country. It's just too big. It will be a part of how we get around for the foreseeable future, and probably beyond the foreseeable future, if there is a foreseeable future. But the reliance on it is going to change, and we have to be investing in mass transit, and we are doing that here in Rhode Island. And with the back in the 80s, there was visionary thinking, cooperation between two states, between Massachusetts and Rhode Island, to bring commuter rail, which was it had its own issues up in Boston, but Massachusetts has been investing in the MBTA, recognizing this need to get to the suburbs, to get people into the core, and not rely on the highways. And Rhode Island jumped on that bandwagon very appropriately by bringing commuter rail service to Providence. And was it Steve? I see Steve's in the back there. It was 88 or to 89 when we opened up that service. 200 riders a day. Providence Station today is 2,000 riders a day are getting on the train in Providence Station. And we expanded that south into South County, 20 miles south. We connected to TF Green Airport in late 2010, and now just last month we opened up the new station at Whitford Junction. So we've provided this access, to just a much broader part of the Rhode Island economy, to not only gain access to Providence, but to gain access to the Boston market. I'm one of these, to prove that I'm a highway guy, It takes me 500 miles a week to get to and from work. Don't tell me why I do that, but I do it. But for somebody to live in South County, to be able to drive to Wickford Junction Station, get on a train, put their car away, hopefully it's an electric car, plugged in at the station on the first floor, but they get on their train, they have, and whether they're coming to Providence, 20 minutes, they're going to Boston, maybe it's an hour and a half, but you can work, you can sleep, you can read, you can do your emails, you can talk to your kids, and you get off, you're refreshed, you're ready to go to work. I'm not always refreshed when I get to work in the morning. And I'll tell you, that's definitely not how I feel when I get home at night. So it just provides a great opportunity, and I'm a firm believer that success breeds success. And with this opportunity now at Wickford Junction and at the Warwick TF Green Airport, and I don't even, but there's great news last night about TF Green Airport, by the way. I think that's really a positive thing for our economy, that we're going to move ahead. Warwick and the airport have come to agreement, and we're going to move ahead with that. Provides a great opportunity for growth in Rhode Island, because now, if I'm, my family and I we had an opportunity to travel in Italy last summer, and just that European sense of being able to fly to an airport, get to a walkable city, get on the transit, get to wherever you want to go. You don't really need to think about renting a car. And now, if you're in Europe, you look at the Eastern Seaboard, you don't want to have to deal with a car. You want to be able to fly in somewhere, get on public transit, get to wherever you need to go. And you can now do that here. You'll be able to do that here. And I think with the growing success on commuter rail, we're going to be looking to ways to expand that in the future, continuing to tie in with RIPTA how these two services are complementary. I think it's a great possibility for the future. Chris has a mild opinion on streetcars, which is good. I mean, I think that really needs to be talked about here. And I think there was another point that in many of those examples of the successes of streetcar was the private investment in that. And I think that, because that's, and I'll end, I usually like to end on a high note. I'm going to end on a down note. This country is changing very dramatically in how it funds transportation, and the bank is dry. Congress can't get its act together to come up with a new surface transportation bill. It's not going to happen before the election. God knows what happens after the election, but in the first quarter of next year, the Highway Trust Fund is going to go dry. And that's how all of the states, to one level, to a greater degree or another, fund their transportation. We in Rhode Island are almost 100% dependent on the Highway Trust Fund and federal investment. And when that goes south, we're in some really difficult time. We really have to rethink how we fund transportation in this state, across the country, but it's very critical in Rhode Island because we are 100% dependent on the feds, and that is likely going away, or it's going to be affected in a very profound way in the very near future. So stay vigilant. It is, as Chris and Jeff both pointed out, transportation infrastructure is critical to economic vitality of any region. Unless we can find a way to invest adequately in it, we're behind the eight ball. So on that down note, Kevin, I turn it back to you.
That's okay. You get 4 interruptions for applause, so that was a good thing, Director Lewis. Keith?
Thank you, Kevin. Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation just does everything Department of Environmental Management and Department of Transportation tells us to do, so it's very simple. Let me just provide 2 observational statements and then talk a little bit about who we are as the Economic Development Corporation, and then third, talk about Governor Chafee as begins to announce and begins to invest in an economic recovery plan. My first observational statement is that for most of my professional career in Rhode Island, quality of place has driven almost all business cultivation attracting activities, and it's the credit or the financing or the deal that comes at the end point. So quality of place has always driven that process and those decisions across industry sectors across the state. The second, I think, important observational statement is that many times we characterize ourselves as a city-state, And I would suggest that we are actually not, and never have been, will never be a city-state. We're actually 39 cities and towns. Within those cities and towns, we have distinct cultural, geographic neighborhoods, villages, and we have to recognize the fact that as we begin to develop a broader economic development plan and policy, we have to incorporate all of the cultural, geographic, historic intricacies of these 39 cities and towns and subsets within them. As an economic development corporation, we're an interesting authority. We are, in fact, the state's super redevelopment agency. We have broad statutory powers where we have the abilities of acquiring and developing land. We have the powers of acquiring and developing and manage utility systems. We have the powers of issuing debt. We have the powers of marketing and development and promotion. So for the last 35 years, we've had significant powers that we disposed. In fact, nearly all of the major economic development, particularly real estate development activities within the state, the Economic Development Corporation has either set up subsidiaries from the Quonset Development Corporation, Rhode Island Airport Corporation, Howard Industrial Park, Capital Center, East Providence Waterfront Development District Commission to today's 195 Commission have all been set up as authorities, subsidiaries of the EDC, where we've had powers to assist in the financing, the capitalization, the development, the permitting, and the systems development. So a quite unique and quite powerful organization. It's been interesting for me to be on the board and be the director associated for almost 19 years, or 4 governors, or 3 economic cycles. Today, going forward, Governor Chafee is doing something, from my perspective, that is quite unique and dynamic, and almost relates to 20 years ago of Governor Sondland. Scott and I had the opportunity to serve Governor Sondland, and he at that time, in the very early 90s, was a new urbanist and a smart growth supporter without knowing it and recognizing it. In fact, his entire focus at that time, very difficult national, certainly state economic times, was to begin to prime the pump of the Rhode Island economy and be catalytic in not trying to attract private sector development, but instead to set the stage with very smart, very focused, urban-based, density-based public infrastructure projects that would begin to set the stage for follow-along private investment. And during those early 90s, the acceleration of the Capital Center, the beginning of the establishment of Rhode Island Airport Corporation as an offshoot of the Department of Transportation to accelerate improvements of the airport, that far-off place called Quonset in North Kingston, beginning to accelerate the acquisition, the development, the cleanup, and preparation of literally thousands of acres of Navy land to set the stage for the Commerce Port today. So it's important to recognize that 20 years ago, there was a tremendous focus in the administration, tremendous integration of work between the cities and communities impacted, our federal delegation, to begin to jumpstart what is today, I would think, some of the most significant assets that we have in this state and this region. Quonset Commerce Park, TF Green Airport, Down City, and Capital Center. And let me emphasize with Down City, because a large part of the success of what was invested in at that time for what we call Capital Center, and the talking and discussions about moving rivers and creating new development options and development opportunities, there was also a real focus in what is today called Down City. How do we continually to reinvest and to reinvigorate the downtown area as it connects and reconnects with the neighborhoods? And in fact, projects such as encouraging Johnson & Wales to come off the hill and develop a campus on Weybosset Street, the very strategic siting of the University of Rhode Island College of Continuing Education and the former Shepherd's Department Store were all things that were not embraced at that time. Let me be very clear. A few who have been around would realize this. These were not embraced. Nobody was talking about new urbanism. In fact, most people were suggesting, why are we putting these campuses and these investments in the downtown of Providence? We should be looking at the suburban areas elsewhere. So that set the stage of where we are today, and where we are today is yet another challenging economic times from a national and certainly from a local perspective. But Governor Chafee being, and the best way to characterize Governor Chafee, he's as much the mayor of Rhode Island as he is the governor of Rhode Island. A highly successful senator, a highly successful mayor, and his approach to economic development is community-based, it's neighborhood-based, it's utilizing public infrastructure activities and dollars to be catalytic to attract private sector investment, and then providing those types of, at the end of the transaction, those incentives to close the deal, to provide that incentive for private growth. So Governor...
That was your signal.
That was before I said that. Governor Chafee, what he's looking to move forward in, which is very exciting, is a whole new level of infrastructure enhancements and developments, and very focused on what we're now calling infrastructure hubs that exist within clusters of economic activity. Those areas is obviously knowledge providence to accelerate the successful completion of the I-Way and really take advantage of the cluster of life science and higher education institutions in knowledge district subsidiary companies. They're already clustering and growing in what today we call the knowledge district and what was before our jewelry district. Our integration of our port facilities, again, another aspect of the urban character and nature of Narragansett Bay, to the fact that we have some of the most significant port assets in development opportunities in the region, but needed the necessary capital investments, but also the integrated marketing development plans. So today we are taking an integrated capital improvement approach of our ports at Davisville, our ports at Probport, our commercial fishing ports of Galilee, and certainly State Fishing Pier in Newport, and our sailing training development port facilities at Fort Adams State Park. All those assets are being integrated in an integrated capital development plan and now moving forward in an integrated marketing plan. The governor will be announcing over the next several months an infrastructure focus on other areas of critical mass and activity. The improvements of our intermodal systems at the Warwick train, air, road systems now gives us an opportunity to develop a very robust Warwick Development District approach to begin to build upon the success of that area of the state. In my community of Aquidneck Island, the communities have worked tirelessly over the last 15 years to develop an opportunity where, as we talk about the potential of 20 acres in Providence, the potential of 300 acres of formal federal property being accessed for reuse, for recreational, commercial, residential, and mixed-use development across the entire west side of Aquidneck Island. So these are all opportunities before us and moving forward. Governor Chafee, being the mayor of Rhode Island, is very well attuned and very well equipped to lead this and working with our federal delegation in our communities. But what is absolutely essential going forward is the thinking inside the box. It is absolutely essential that we might be 39 cities and towns, but we have to think in an integrated, collaborative way as we begin to make these infrastructure development investments in each of the communities in each of the key geographic areas.
Thank you, Keith. Okay.
It is aliens.
I don't think it was me. Maybe it was the alien. Thank you. Sorry for that audio problem. Let me just close by saying I think one thing we all share. Okay. One thing we all share up here is our great love for this state and a desire to use what we have left wisely, to leave something for future generations, and to be very careful in our brief stewardship in the positions that we hold. And we don't succeed without not only cooperation amongst each other, but also with all of your help, and that's why you're here today. And let me also just close by saying, aren't we lucky to have these kinds of public servants working for Rhode Island?
Thank you.